The record drop in most world stock markets for the first week of the year, which was the beginning of a systematic attack to dismantle the Khazarians' mafia Babylonian debt slavery-based financial system. Multiple government agency sources confirm. Most stock market indexes are expected to fall by 60 to 50% before this campaign ends, according to a senior official at the Asian Development Bank, Pentagon sources, and a CIA agent involved in the operation that bankrupted the Soviet Union. The attack is aimed at bankrupting the large Khazarian mafia banks that have been behind so many of the world's troubles. As a result, the Khazarians are running out of options as oil prices collapse, drug money is cut off, and stock market manipulation is being stopped. Richard Fisher, former head of the Dallas branch of the Federal Reserve Board Crime Syndicate, admits that what the Fed did, and I was part of it, was front-load an enormous market rally in order to create a wealth effect, and added, the Fed is a giant weapon and has no ammunition left. Make no mistake, when he says front-loading, he means distributing Fed money to Khazarian mafiosi by artificially raising the value of the stock market. This is now being brought to an end, which is why markets are collapsing. There will be more about the financial attack on the Khazarians below, but first, we should mention the legal actions being taken against this next. Most interestingly, Hillary Clinton is about to become the most senior Khazarian gangster arrested, yet in the unfolding campaign to end their rule. According to Pentagon and other sources, FBI Director James Comey threatened to resign as part of an agency revolt against the Obama administration unless the Justice Department fired criminal charges against Hillary Clinton for multiple improvement crimes. Also, the capture of Mexican drug El Chapo last week means that he will be extradited to the United States to seek to destroy Wall Street banks, Exes, and the Bushes, according to a Defense Intelligence Agency sources. The takedown of Khazarian mafia politicians has already begun at a lower level. In particular, the NSA has compiled evidence against politicians who were bribed by Israel into opposing the nuclear accord between the U.S. government and Iran. So far, Republican Senator Tom Cotton has been outed as having received $1 million bribe to oppose the deal. Cotton convinced 47 senators to sign a letter opposing the peace deal with Iran. He will soon go to jail. Congressman Steve Israel, head of the Democratic Party caucus in Congress, was also forced to resign over his opposition to the peace deal with Iran, the Pentagon sources say. He too may see the inside of the prison soon. This is what a CIA financial expert who was involved in bankrupting the Soviet Union had to say about these politicians. These are the rats that I have been talking about. The senator should be taken out and hanged on the Capitol lawn for all to see what a rat looks like. Other rats are also being hunted down now. Let us not forget as well that former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is on investigation for using his own plane to smuggle large amounts of cocaine. Also, a Saudi prince was recently arrested in Lebanon carrying 2 tons of amatamites in his private plane. In another very visible sign, the worldwide campaign against the Khazarian Satan worshippers was proceeding at a growing pace. The older brother of recently resigned Pope Maledict has been outed as having sexually abused and beaten 231 Troy boys. In Israel as well, the world's leading capitalist and advisor to billionaires Rabbi Jose Pinto has been sent to jail on bribery charges. There were many other arrests of Khazarian mobsters last week that we will not bother listing here other than to say that many more arrests will come. The situation in Israel and the Middle East is also now coming to a head. General Jose Fulford, head of the Joint Chief of Staff at the Pentagon, flew to Turkey last week, where, according to Pentagon sources, he had a secret meeting with Valery Gerasimov, Chief of Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. At this meeting, according to Russian sources, Fulford and Gerasimov discussed Russian demands that the UN established a tribunal to investigate the involvement of Israeli intelligence services and the Israeli government in the creation of international terrorist organizations and interaction with these terrorist organizations. Most of the terror was relating to the now collapsing Zionist project to create a greater Israel over much of the Middle East, the Russians say. They have already presented the UN with ample proof of this, they say. Turkish President Recep Erdogan was refused permission to attend this meeting. According to Pentagon sources, instead, the Russian and American top generals told the Turkish General Staff they had to remove Erdogan, a Khazarian pseudo-Muslim, from power. Fulford also told the Turks to close their border with Israel or face serious repercussions. The American general also told the Russians they had sent Hellfire missiles to Cuba recently to help them shoot down drones being used by Khazarian mobsters to protect their drug operations in South America and Afghanistan. Furthermore, a Russian court presided over by Judge Nina Antonovich also recently ruled that Judeo-Zionists were guilty of mass murder of the Russian people, and justice for that historical crime is also on the Russian agenda, the sources said. Meanwhile, in an effort to salvage their collapsing pseudo-Muslim Khazarian kingdom, Saudi Arabia sent Deputy Crown Prince and Defense Minister Mohammed bin Salman to Pakistan to seek military protection. All he got, despite offering huge bribes to key Pakistani officials, was lip-serviced. The fact is that the Pakistani people will not fight a war to protect pseudo-Muslim terrorists sponsoring Wahhab Khazarian Saudi criminals. More to the point, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon issued a statement that Saudi Arabia's indiscriminate bombing of civilians in Yemen constitute a war crime, while criminals usually face the death penalty or life in prison. It is important because it shows former UN recognition of a joint Russian, Pentagon, Chinese, and Iranian army already in the Middle East to fight the Khazarian gangster states and the mercenary armies in the region. The UN itself, of course, is a deeply flawed Kabul-infiltrated institution, and Ban Ki-moon is likely to be replaced soon, possibly by a Russian. It was Ban Ki-moon who offered Dragon family representative a $100 million bribe in 2009 in exchange for giving up efforts to cash $134 billion worth of bonds following the so-called Chiasco incident. The secret financial war that this incident was a part of is now finally reaching a climax of some sort. It turns out these bonds were only the tip of the iceberg, and since then, countless quadrillions of dollars worth of off-ledger bonds used by Khazarians have been exposed. The use of double books, one with uncountable trillions worth of dollars for the cabal and another of perpetual debt and financial shortage of the masses, is first being exposed. The financial war is also escalating in China, where the Chinese government has ordered hedge funds to sell their stocks and get out of the Chinese market. The Chinese have also been liquidating their dollar holdings at the rate of over $100 billion a month as a part of this. A Chinese agent was dispatched to visit the White Dragon Society last week to inform them that, as a part of negotiations to reunify Taiwan and China, the Chinese Communist Party has agreed to allow other parties to participate in the Chinese political scene. Presumably, this means giving the Taiwan-based Kuomintang some sort of role in governing mainland China and raising the possibility of elections there in the future, the sources said. Important changes are also taking place behind the scenes in Japan, which after the United States is the second largest economy still controlled by the Khazarian mob. The source at the Japanese-led Asian Development Bank says Japan has already made a decision to break with Khazarians and join the Chinese-sponsored Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. The Japanese yen has no real backing, and Japan is Dragon family gold, so they will have to join the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, he said. The recent surge in the yen and collapse of Japanese stock markets is also the result of a cutoff of Bank of Japan funds to the Khazarians. This means they are being forced to sell off their Japanese stock holdings in order to cover for the loss elsewhere in the world. The recent British-Japanese announcement of enhanced military ties is also a sign of British have promised to help the Japanese fight against the Khazarians. This is important because of the close personal links between British and Japanese royal families. It means James Bond types are already in Japan, hunting down the Khazarian agents involved in the 11 March nuclear and tsunami mass murder attack against Japan. There's obviously stuff going on now that we cannot report in more detail in order not to endanger ongoing operations. The ADB and Pentagon sources also agree that stock markets may be abolished because they have been used as instruments to centralize all corporate power and control in the hands of a tiny elite. They're also talking about making everything open source and freely available. In any case, the White Dragon Society and their allies are hoping to replace the current system of rigged markets and Khazarian family mafia-owned central banks with transparently and meritocratically run institutions working for the people.